Hi and hello, watch fans, and welcome to another edition of the Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighborhood watchmaker, Rob Nuds, my co-host, Alon Ben Joseph, and our good friend Charris from MB&F in the studio. I'm going to hand over to Alon immediately to introduce a man that he has a great deal of respect for and whom we are very, very proud to welcome to the show. Away you go, Alon.
Thank you, Rob. Charris, I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Same here.
Because we go way back. And the funny thing is with the real-time show, we want real people, real talks, and a lot of fun. And that's who you are.
Sounds good to me.
Obviously, MB&F stands for Max, Büsser and Friends. You are definitely a friend, not only Max's friend, but also ours. And because that platform of a brand that started 17 years ago is very much about the community of friends creating amazing stuff, you are as much MB&F for me as Max is.
Wow, that's a huge compliment.
And I truly mean this because Max is a nice guy, but you're even nicer. and of the 17 years, if I'm not mistaken, you're creeping up to 12 years. So
that's right.
You've been more than 2/3 part of that company, and I don't think company pays enough respect to what you guys are doing. It's a cooperation, it's a collaborative, and you are very modest. Besides that, you're very nice, and we just discussed that you're also very handsome. But
where do I go from here?
no, where do we go from here? But guys, official intro: Charris Yadigaroglu, if I said that correctly.
Perfect.
Because you've been mentioned Charris, and if I remember correctly, day one that I met you, I got thrown off by your American accent. But I guessed you have a Mediterranean blood running through you.
Yeah.
I actually remember meeting Max and you simultaneously at the little booth back in the days in Basel, the good old days.
Exactly.
And we hit it off the bat, and we tried to see if we can do cool stuff in Amsterdam. Your official title is, I believe, Head of Marketing Communication at M.B&F, but
that's right.
I think that shows how modest you are, because it seems like Max does everything, and he does a lot, but he always says, I am as strong as my team and my friends. And that's so true. And I truly believe you are a very important ingredient for MB&F. And that's why we wanted you first on the show.
Wow.
And obviously we'll be very honored if Max comes on, and obviously we're going to invite him. So, you know how much Rob and I are fans of MB&F. So I'm going to shut up. Do you want to add anything to the intro, Charris?
Well, wow. What can I say? I mean, I'm blushing. I wasn't expecting such kind words, honestly. And a lot of things that you said are true, not about me, but just about MB&F and Max and so on. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been creeping up to 12 years. And I've actually known Max longer, because most people don't know this, but we were friends before I actually joined the company. So yeah, it's been a while. But thanks so much for the intro. I mean, the words were too kind.
Yeah, and although we don't have a business relationship going on, I also had the honor to take the same stage as you did during events in Switzerland. The last one I remembered vividly, actually, was your presentation at the Netcom Swiss.
Oh, wow,
that we both did. Remember at the Wilson Hotel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And why do you deserve being head of marketing communication? You blew me away with not only a beautiful visual presentation, but you actually said nobody knows us. So I want to maybe start off diving into the world of MB&F by, you guys are living legends in the watch world. And obviously we're a small community.
Yep.
Thankfully we're growing, but I'm actually very curious. So you guys are renowned in the watch world and world famous. And congrats on the 2 GPHG awards, well deserved.
Thank you so much.
We've discussed extensively. Where do you guys go from here? So you said in that presentation that hardly anybody knows you, ultra rare. Is that something you're happy with, or that's something that needs to change?
It's yes and no is the answer, but I'll develop a little bit. I mean, you're right. I mean, the awareness of MB&F, I guess, within the watch world is growing. And it's, if I compare to when I arrived 12 years ago, yeah, definitely. It's if you talk to a serious watch collector now, there's a good chance that they have heard about us. So that's cool. But outside, as you just said, Alon, I mean, outside of our community, the watch fan community, our awareness is still very low compared to the 4 or 5 mega brands out there, which everyone knows. And we're not. That's okay with us, but we would like to be to be a little bit better known. I mean, it would help us, obviously, like any brand. It's the same old story as any luxury brand. I mean, look at Ferrari. Obviously, the awareness of Ferrari extends far, far beyond its client base. So that's a nice situation to be in, and it's a situation we would love to be in one day, obviously. So yeah, my job, part of my job is increasing the awareness around MB&F in general.
Rob and I went out on this adventure of the Real-Time Show about 3 months ago when this episode airs. We've been overwhelmed with the positive feedback and actually the quantity of listeners, which we hoped but didn't expect. And we thought we would cater to the hardcore watch fam, as it's called, the hashtag watch fam and the watch community and the watch nerds. But the cool thing is, and that's what I hope, that we would spread the passion and knowledge about watchmaking
Fantastic.
to new collectors. And we actually reach them.
Perfect.
I get loads of feedback. Wow, Alon, I've never heard about this brand. Wow, Alon, it's so cool. I go on audio adventures. So could you just give a short elevator pitch what MB&F is for those that don't know MB&F?
Sure.
And then I'm going to hand out the mic to Rob.
With pleasure. In maybe 2 minutes. To understand MB&F, you need to understand a little bit about where the founder of the company, the MB, Max Büsser, as you said before, comes from. Max did 15 years of classic big brand watchmaking business. So he was first at Jaeger and then at Harry Winston. He became a bit of a star at Harry Winston. He was the managing director there of the timepiece division. And at the height of his career, he quit that amazing job to start this little company on his own called MB&F. And the reason he did that was to be proud of himself and to be proud of what he was making. That's really what drove him. He wanted to make a company that was designed for creativity. So the concept itself, it has to allow a maximum amount of creativity. It had to also, and that's why the name is And Friends, it had to be done in a way that was enjoyable and was with people we enjoy working with and share the same values. That sounds a bit corny. It sounds almost a bit naive and fairy tale like, but it really still is very much what drives us today. So creativity, working with people who have the same values, whom we enjoy working with, that's what MB&F is about. Part of that mix was also creating these very unconventional watches that are more, an art form, I guess. That sounds very, lacking some modesty, I guess, but that's what we're trying to do here. We're not just making, tool watches, which are great. A lot of brands out there are making super cool tool watches. We love them, but that's not what we're about. We're about making artistic watches, very unconventional watches. That's why we call them machines.
I mean, you've done a great job of actually not just carving out that niche for yourselves, because I suppose that niche could be anything when you get up to the level of horology you're working with, but also defining a very identifiable design language, which is maybe in some ways easier when you have no boundaries in that you can do anything, but also harder then to constrain yourselves responsibly and stay within that lane. So you're talking about the creation, and obviously we can see the wild creativity and the ideas that get thrown around and those that come to fruition in the pieces themselves. I would love to be in one of your design meetings. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I can imagine it's a lot of fun. The funny thing is, I also can barely imagine that there's disagreements behind the scenes, but I'm sure there are many.
Oh yeah, there are. Of course. And to be honest, it has changed over the years. In the past, it was a very smaller committee process, meaning basically Max and our longtime friend Eric Giroux, who designs still today the pieces with Max. So it used to be very restrained. We would discover the projects later, along the process, and that has changed. I mean, more recently, Max has opened up to additional members of the team, and I'm very lucky to be part of that. And so, yeah, there are disagreements. Now, in the end, of course, Max makes the decisions because he is our creative director. but he's listening more. He listens to various people. He consolidates all that and then makes his decision. And there are absolutely disagreements.
So that's wonderful to hear that there is this sort of creative friction. Obviously, it's necessary, but
Yep.
in the processes that you've been through, and you've been through a great many, and I think nearly all of the most visible projects that MB&F has ever approached, which was the most difficult watch to create? And okay, we'll start off. Let's just answer the process. Which one do you remember, if there is one, that stuck out as like, oh, this is a struggle, and I'm glad that it's finished and it's out there in the world? Not to be negative, but just just curious
Sure.
which one it was.
Sure. The one I remember best is the Flying T.
Oh yeah,
the Legacy Machine Flying T. So the first watch, inspired by or dedicated to women, the women in Max's family, because I was there. The previous one, which was an absolute headache, nightmare, was the Legacy Machine #1. In fact, I was joining the company then, so I was not part of the initial steps of that process. I joined sort of towards the end. I joined in 2011, early 2011, and Legacy Machine #1 was launched in October, so a few months later. So I can't really comment on that, but I know, obviously, having discussed this with Max many times, that it was a nightmare. It was not supposed to be a round watch, Legacy Machine #1. It was supposed to be another horological machine. And code name internally was horological machine #5. It was the fifth. And only, many months into the process, after having gone through tons of designs with Eric Giroux, did Max sort of frustrated sketch a very simple watch, apparently, so a round case, our first round case at the time, and the story is, and it's a true story, Eric Giroux stormed out of the room saying, this is not what we're doing here at MB&F, Max. This is, I'm not making a round watch for you guys. So that was a challenge. But Flying T, I did see the process, and it was supposed to be as well a horological machine. Max had, a lot of pressure because this was the first time that he was actually creating with someone else in mind, not himself. So again, the women in his family, his mother, his wife, his daughters, and I guess the willingness to create something exceptional for them, for those women, that added extra pressure. And he went around, in so many circles. We saw so many complicated designs, very complicated designs. Things like merry-go-rounds and opening and closing flowers. The designs were wacky and totally out of this world, but just not right. And that boiled down a bit like Legacy Machine #1, in fact, to something very simple in the end. When you look at the Flying T, it's actually very restrained. I find it very beautiful, but very restrained. So yeah, those are two examples of a long creative process, and which of which the final result, does not look like the first sketches at all. In other cases, it's different. In other cases, you see the first sketch that Max scribbled on a piece of paper, and the final product, and they're very close. Obviously, technically, we can run into all kinds of challenges. But the pure creative, aesthetic, if you like, side sometimes is smoother.
And what about the technical side of things? Which one presented the biggest challenges technically? Because you've gone, especially in recent years, down some incredible avenues with the technology that you're putting out there. And this year's GPHG Grand Prix winner is a great example of that. Which one was the toughest?
A few things come to mind. Surprisingly, perhaps HM5, which was our first automotive-inspired piece with the optical display. So horizontal movement, which is pretty normal, but then this vertically facing lateral time display, which is an optical illusion, if you like, an optical reflection of horizontal discs below. That combination of mechanical and optical engineering was an absolute nightmare. Literally, I remember our head of R&D and production, Serge Kriknov, making cardboard models of this because we just could not figure the thing out on computer or whatever. It was a nightmare. More recently, the amazing movements, and I say this because it's a tribute to Stephen McDonnell, which he's designed for us, the perpetual calendar, so the LM Perpetual, and more recently the chronograph, the LM Sequential. Those were extremely challenging, despite the immense talent of Stephen to finalize. So there's been a few. Everything that has to do with unusual cases. If I look at HM9, so it's not just movements. The HM9 movement is very sort of streamlined, not single straight line on that case approach, with sapphire crystals all over the place, especially when you get into the SV versions. Those are incredibly challenging, not just to produce, to manufacture, but then to actually, make waterproof, for example. So there's a 3D gasket in one of those. Yeah, there's been a bunch of challenges. The triple axis Thunderdome watch, which we created, Legacy Machine Thunderdome. There have been a few. Wow. If I go back, I could go on and on and on.
Well, I mean, when you look at the pieces, it's a wonder that any of them aren't anything but an immense challenge, because they are complicated as hell. And good to hear Stephen's name dropped on the show. I'd love to get him on. He's a friend of mine as well. I worked together with him at Bremont in 2015, and
he's an amazing person.
He's a wonderful guy, wonderful, lovely man. And there's nothing I like more than sitting in the corner of a pub with him having a good old British pint.
Absolutely. And it will be a challenge to get him on a show like this. But the crazy thing is he's a natural once he's on it. I mean, he's a bit shy. He doesn't, look for the limelight or whatever. But when he's there, he's great. So I hope you do manage one day.
I'll reach out to him. I mean, it's something that has to happen, I think, because he is one of the luminaries of the industry and has done a lot more than people realize, because, like you say, he doesn't seek out the attention or the spotlight for himself, but he does deserve it, that's for sure. Now, talking of calibers and caliber design, how many calibers has it been now that MB&F has produced in the last almost 2 decades now? Do you know off the top of your head? It's a lot, right?
20 calibers in 17 years. We're very, very proud, and it's nuts. I mean, it makes no sense. Business-wise, I mean, if we had a CFO, an accountant in this company, which we don't, we would all get fired. I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. Seriously, more than a caliber every year on average.
That's nuts.
So some years 2 different. It's absolute, and I'm talking, new calibers. I'm not talking just slight variations of existing calibers. I am talking new calibers every single time. And by the way, the vast majority of which were created entirely from scratch. So there are a few, to be totally transparent. And as you know, that is part of the deal with MB&F. We are transparent. So there are a few, especially at the beginning of the company, which do have base movements. The HM2, the HM3 were built on a Girard-Perregaux base movement. And then, of course, we add all these crazy modules on top. But I think there are, among those 20 calibers, maybe 5, which do have base movements. So 15. 3/4 were built entirely from scratch. It's absolutely insane.
I mean, it is when you consider it. It makes no sense, but thank goodness it doesn't, because it's a wonderful thing to behold. But I mean, most brands, and I know this firsthand from working in the production side of things, say, "Oh, it's going to be at least 2 years before we can actually make a bracelet for this watch."
Yep.
And it's like a bracelet. It's going to take you 2 years to make a bracelet. Yeah, well, we got to design it. We got to test it. We got to see how it wears. It's like, all right, fine. I understand that there's a lot of processes to go through. And if somebody said to me that it would take you 5 years to develop a movement as unique as, say, the one in the HM7, which I think is maybe my favorite, you'd shrug and you'd say, "Hey, okay, that's absolutely fine. That's what you'd expect for that kind of horology." But to say that you've done this time and time again I've never heard a word of criticism about the functionality of these movements, how they run. It's like, "Oh, you don't want to buy the HM8 because you're going to be sending it back for service in 3 weeks." Never heard it. Never, not once. And these are complicated movements. It's an unbelievable achievement. So kudos and thank God for you.
Thank you for saying so. I mean, it's true. We've been very fortunate. We've had good people. What can I say? It's Max will tell you himself, and I think it's very true. He has a few talents, but one of them is surrounding himself with the right people, whether internally or externally. So all the friends who help us make these amazing machines, hats off to them, because they are amazing human beings. The Stephen McDonald's and everyone else. Some are more visible because, yes, they are the key person behind the movement, like Stephen McDonald, but all the other people who make, as I said, our sapphire crystals, our balance wheels, our various gears and bridges and components. I mean, they're all amazing people, and they're doing amazing work, and one of the reasons why we credit them, and that's been the deal from the very beginning. As you know, every single machine we create, if you want to know who made what, you go to our website or read our press release or whatever, and you have all the credits. Nothing to hide. We're so proud of working with these people.
So his great skill is making MB&F F and MB, and that's
Yes.
that's
Absolutely.
a nice way to look at it. Talking of F and MB, to thank those friends that you've enjoyed a healthy working relationship with over the past 17 years. A couple of years back, you made the M.A.D.1, of course, and you made that available to your close friends. And then last year, I think it was just trying to remember when I got.
Actually, no, beginning of this year, we opened it up to a wider public.
This year.
Yeah, this year. It's time flies. I know. Same here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This year, you're right. This year, you released a second edition in red, and Alon and I have been trading bets behind the scenes on what colors coming next, because we both. Well, I want a green one. You know, I've got the red. I want the green one. He wants the red. I want a green because of my Irish background, and hopefully that'll come soon. I noticed that you recently did a special edition Milan edition in a beautiful old gold color.
That's right.
But tell us about the background to the M.A.D.1. What was the thinking? What was the process? How did you find that experience?
It's an old project which Max had at the back of his head for many, many years. It started off as a thing called Blue Dog or Green Dog. I forget now. So we're talking something like 15 years ago. We're talking very beginning of MB&F. And at the time already, Max felt that it would be, cool to create something for his close friends and family who cannot afford, our MB&Fs. We cannot afford our own MB&Fs ourselves. So, why not create something with the same creativity, but in a very different price point? So that was there. It didn't happen at the time because, different priorities. And that same project has been resurfacing every few years in slightly different form ever since. And then the final time it came up again was right at the beginning of COVID, because we were sitting there at home, each of us, Max in Dubai, because he lives in Dubai now, and, obviously a bit worried about what was happening in the world, and brainstorming like crazy, thinking, what should we do? How can we, despite this lockdown, continue to create and do cool stuff? And this project surfaced again. And we said, okay, this, now or never, let's do it. Obviously, a lot of extra work because there's no additional team, there's no additional resources or whatever. This is just a side project, but we felt it was the right time, and finalized that project, which had been sitting around for many years. And as you said, the thinking was, well, who do we offer this to? Who do we start with? We have no idea if people will like it or not. It's very different. It's very surprising coming from MB&F. And that's where this idea was, we need to give back to those amazing friends, all those suppliers who help us make MB&Fs. So that was the first part. Let's offer it to those people, the formal friends, the suppliers, and also to the people who have been basically sponsoring us from the very beginning, meaning our clients, because we cannot ignore them either. So those two groups of people got access to that very first edition, which was in blue. And then, of course, and by the way, I mean, as you may remember, no product launch, no big noise, no nothing, just an email that went out to those two groups of people. Now, obviously, word got out. And, today with social media and the web and so on, obviously nothing stays secret very long. So the word got out, and the word went crazy. We were expecting a little bit of feedback, but nothing like what happened. I mean, it was a tidal wave, and people went nuts, saying, I want this. And that's why about 12 months later, so early this year, we did come out with a second edition, the red one, which was available to a slightly wider public, meaning you didn't have to be a formal supplier, friend, or client. You could be anyone. But the numbers weren't high enough. I mean, we made in total of the red something like 1,000 pieces. Half of those we did reserve to people who had actually, written us notes following the first edition, saying, when you do something for a wider public, I want to be on the list. So they got a first option. And then the remaining 500 pieces we put in the lottery, as you may remember. And that was even more surprising. We got in the beginning, 35,000 registrations on that lottery, which was free of charge, of course, so just for access to the piece. After cleaning the list, because there were quite a few, duplicates and so on, people who were multiplying their chances, we got it down to something like 22,000. But still, 22,000 people registered for access to the piece. Blew our minds. Absolutely blew our minds. Still blows our minds.
And it blew my mind because I'm on the waiting list as well.
Good, thank you, Alon. I hope you get it next time because there's more coming.
I'm patient, and I know you guys do. So I've been a fan, and people that know me know that the whole indie steampunk movement got sparked within me by Vianney Halte.
Amazing. I get it.
And then the Opus series, which of course was Max Busser's brainchild.
Yes.
And marrying all these amazing independents that nobody even would look at, because when I used to go to Baselworld, the first thing my dad and I would go to was the AHCI booth in Hall 5. So that's amazing. And that's why I've always been a huge fan of MB&F. Still don't own one, but they're in my Holy Grail list, in my Grail watch list. Now, I want to make a bridge to M.A.D. and what I've noticed from collectors, they didn't understand it's technically not really an MB&F. It's a M.A.D. gallery watch, right?
We call it M.A.D. edition, yeah.
Yes.
Brand,
so I want to take a bridge there because also in retail, you guys revolutionized stuff. So when you guys wanted to open boutiques, you didn't just do a boring mono-brand boutique. You created a gallery, which was called M.A.D., Mechanical Art Devices.
That's right.
Right? And you would bring on friends, you made new friends, and it was art. And one of the product categories were, by coincidence, MB&F watches.
You're right.
So I think also it's wonderful how you guys married that idea of democratizing, I mean this respectfully, MB&F for those collectors, and you linked it to those galleries, the M.A.D.1, right?
You're absolutely right. It was so funny because I had just joined the company. I mean, literally a few days or a couple of weeks maybe. And Max walks up and says, we have this opportunity for a space not very far from the office in the center of Geneva. What do you think? And I'm like, what do you mean, Max? I mean, has this been planned or no, it's not planned. It's just an opportunity that popped up. The space is cool. It's a good street. What do you think? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Does anyone have retail experience in this company? No one has retail experience. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I have this idea of a gallery, blah, blah, blah. And so we start talking about this. And the whole thing started because Max had tried before the opening of our first M.A.D. gallery to actually place his watches in art galleries. He had approached classic art galleries because, again, his approach to watchmaking was an artistic approach. So he thought maybe there's something to do with art galleries. And he got thrown out of those art galleries. I mean, it was very humiliating, apparently. These art galleries looked down at him and, oh, you're making watches, sir. That's a commercial product. It's not, it's not art. Okay, well, we can discuss the commercial aspects of art, but anyway. So he had that idea of somehow bringing art and watchmaking together, but he had done the opposite route. He had gone to art galleries and got thrown out. And so when this first space popped up, we were like, well, can we create our own mechanical art gallery and find our own mechanical artists and show our own watches next to those amazing artists? That's how it started. And it has been such a cool experience, so stimulating, so inspiring for us, because all these artists whom we, select from around the world, whom we curate, some of them have contributed to our watchmaking. So we have made what we call performance art pieces, collaborations with them. But just in general, to be in a space, in an environment where you are surrounded by these incredible artists is so, stimulating. And people loved it. Cherry on the cake. I mean, people loved the gallery itself. People started coming in. I remember the first days when we opened the gallery here in Geneva, we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't even have a credit card terminal to take payments or anything. It was just like, let's open this space and maybe a few people will wander in and ask questions, and that's cool. But then people started to actually want to buy the art or buy the watches, and we were like, oh, okay, we need to equip ourselves here and actually, hire someone maybe to run to manage the gallery. But it was so intuitive, so so spontaneous. Now it's, as you know, it's in a few locations in around the world, and we've made a sort of hybrid version of it, which we've called now the labs, the MB&F labs, which have just opened in Paris and Singapore, which is like a smaller, more manageable version of the M.A.D. galleries. So yeah, it's an important part of the brand now. It's become an important part. We had no idea what we were doing in the very beginning, but it's become an important part.
And that's amazing. This stream of creativity for 17 years, and obviously in the making before that, and 20 calibers in 20 years, coming up with these indeed mechanical devices that you've been talking about. So these beautiful, I call them desktop artifacts.
Thank you.
And a stroke of genius with the M.A.D.1 again. So don't you guys suffer from a writer's block? What's next? Where are you guys taking it from here?
Sometimes, we have a few key values which we've sort of pinpointed in the past few years now. One of them is definitely community. We were talking about it before, and looking at the M.A.D.1 and so on, it's definitely very, very strong. The second one we call challenge and try. It's something that is so important to us, and it has to come from the very, very top, obviously, in a company. So from Max himself, he is obsessed with that. He gets so worried, so bored, so frustrated when things are just running smoothly. It's just not possible. It's a sign of danger to us if things are just too quiet and too under control. There's that famous line by racing driver Andretti: if everything is under control, it means you're not driving fast enough. I think that's how it goes. That's exactly it. It cannot be that everything is perfect. We have to be not in our comfort zone. Max hates the comfort zone, and that culture, that company culture, obviously trickles down to everyone in the company. It's challenge and try, man. We were not sure of the M.A.D. gallery at all. As I said, we did not know what we were doing with that, but let's try it. Obviously, try to manage the risk. Don't put the entire company in danger if possible, but let's challenge and let's try. And if we fail, that's okay. That's part of the deal. There's no punishment or whatever if we try stuff and put reasonable good efforts and intelligence and everything and then fail. That's okay. But definitely the other thing, meaning not trying, that is frowned on. Not something we like. It's part of the company culture. Just keep trying stuff. We're not sure, but let's try. M.A.D.1 was so much that. I can tell you the endless discussions on that product. Not just the product development, but do we actually do this? Who do we offer it to at first? Do we make a wider available version? Those are endless discussions, and we're never sure, obviously, of what the outcome will be. Never.
And it seems that Max is maybe the reincarnated Samuel Beckett, who always said, fail, fail, fail better.
Yeah.
So it seems you guys are always in a constant state of flux, always seeking the tipping points of everything. Maybe to learn from our mistakes. What is something that went utterly wrong?
Oh, several things. Actually, when we celebrated our 10 years, so back in 2015, we did present a few big failures. One of them was too much R&D. There were a few years, because we did get into a situation a few years ago where we started making systematically two new calibers a year. And that put the company in danger because, a caliber is typically 4 years of development. So a new machine is 4 years. And during those 4 years, obviously, you're investing like crazy and not getting anything out of that caliber. It's just a pure loss for 4 years. So doing two of those, planning for two new calibers released every year, that was just too much. So there was a point. This was I'm trying to remember now exactly the year, something like 2013, 2012, 2000, I'm not sure, where we realized that just financially the company was not viable. I mean, we were just investing too much into R&D and production of components and so on, prototyping. We almost went bankrupt at one point. Another example was a project we did many years ago, which most people don't remember, don't even notice at the time. A project called nitroglycerine, which was an amazing collaboration between MB&F and Urwerk, actually more formally between Max, our head of production, Serge, and Martin Frey and Felix Baumgartner of Urwerk. So those four gentlemen created a very cool watch called the nitroglycerine, which was really a mix of MB&F and Urwerk. You can still find them online. Just 12 pieces and then 12 additional pieces, 24 pieces in total. Very quiet launch. This was just an experiment. By the way, the model was called Experiment. I think it was ZRO12, something like that. And we managed that in a very clumsy way. We ran into major problems with our retailers who felt they had been betrayed, which was not at all the intention. But yeah, we learned that you cannot just do stuff without keeping your partners informed, and even if it seems minor to you, it may be a major thing to them. We learn every time. So there have been many occasions where we ran into serious problems. I mean, the very beginning of the company, MB&F could not. There was a serious risk back in 2007, yes, when the first HM1 pieces were delivered. We Max at the time was practically alone. Almost missed that by a few weeks or months. The company almost went bankrupt. So there have been at least 4 or 5 such occasions where we were in big danger. Obviously, the worldwide crisis as well back in 2008, 2009. That was a serious hit. At the time, Max had planned to produce something like 200 or 300 HM2s. Imagine, one model. Because the world was booming just before that. And then the financial crisis struck everyone. And I think he took something like 12 pieces on order at Baselworld, where he was gearing up to produce 200 or 300. There have been quite a few bumps in the road, I can tell you. And we know there will be more. We know.
It's when you take risk, but that's where the magic is created. And going from lows, I would love to hear what's your personal high and success, or something that stands out for you in your dozen years at M.B&F.
There have been so many, but I'll say just to pick maybe 3 off the top of my head. LM1, Legacy Machine number 1, because I was new in the company at the time. As I said before, it was 6-8 months into the company. And this was a major surprise. We had created those 4 horological machines, including HM4, which was absolutely bonkers, this sort of jet engine, incredible horological machine for your wrist. And so this was the 5th. People were expecting something even crazier, and instead we came out with this relatively classic Legacy Machine number 1. And the launch was incredible. I mean, people were, shocked, surprised, sometimes not always in a good way, but the noise was just amazing and overwhelmingly, fortunately, positive. But there was also some negative feedback. So Legacy Machine number 1, which opened that entire new avenue for us. M.A.D.1. The first M.A.D.1 release to those friends and clients and the following tidal wave, as I said before, of feedback, that was incredible, because it was after, many months of debate, internal debate. Should we do it? Should we not do it? How do we do it? And so on. And the success that followed and continues, that's a big high point. And I guess just recently, because it's still at the top of my head, the Aiguille d'Or, we just won at GPHG. That's, which obviously recognizes the incredible work of Stephen McDonald for the sequential, the chronograph. But as we all know, I guess when the jury, decides on these things, and I don't know exactly how these things go, but from what I can guess, it's also, the recognition of everything that's come before. So I think that Aiguille d'Or kind of recognizes what we've been doing these past years. That's yeah, we're proud of that.
Yeah, and you should be, rightfully
Thank
so.
you.
So for our listeners that maybe are not that familiar with the model lineup, so MB&F, as
Yeah.
you've been listening, is super creative, pushing boundaries. So the HM models, the horological machines, are really contemporary, out there
Yes.
to break
Yes.
anything that you've known.
And that's how we started, and that's the way we position that, is to say that it's this will make you laugh, but it's almost Max's psychotherapy, meaning it's memories, it's emotions from his life, his life as a now 55-year-old guy, but going back mainly to his childhood, the 1960s, 70s, 80s, growing up in those times, all those memories, all those strong emotions which we had as kids. So cars, spaceships, science fiction, those are things that inspire the horological machines and that create these totally unconventional watches. That's one line. And then the legacy machines, which came, well, as the fifth machine, if you like. So after those first four horological machines, which is our tribute to classic watchmaking, but obviously with the MB&F twist. So it remains very three-dimensional. We don't do ultra slim watches. We love showing the machine, showing the mechanics, but in a more classic way.
I think you're an amazing marketeer, and you and I have been American schooled, so I guess we both love one-liners and marketing slogans.
Yes.
The slogan for the legacy machines is, for me, phenomenal, because you guys say machines MB&F would have created 100 years ago.
Yes. That's how, in a nutshell, how we do it. Take the entire team, take MB&F, Max and the rest of us, send us back 100 years and make us make watches. That's what we would do. We would make legacy machines.
Yeah, so the philosophy behind it is amazing, and you summarize it so well. Is this something you've written, that sentence?
It's always a team effort. To be honestly, I'm not being modest or whatever here. I don't remember who came up with that. I probably somehow or another contributed to it, because it's my team's responsibility. But I don't know if I wrote it myself. I can't remember. It usually never is a single person. Honestly, anything we write or whatever, it's always a discussion and jumping from one guy to another, one girl to another, and then it just somehow materializes. So
now you are a brilliant mind, and I want to pick your brain. Where do you see the watch industry going from here? I mean, not MB&F only has peaked and reached almost a zenith, let's say, or it has actually, and it's as if the whole watch industry has.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're going from here? Where do you see the whole industry going?
Well, the good news for the industry is, I think, for all kinds of reasons, there is a much wider awareness of watchmaking in general. Watches have always been around and people have always worn watches, but somehow the product category has become attractive and cool to a wider group of people. I'm not exactly sure why, but somehow the number of people potentially interested in watches has increased. That's good news, obviously, for watchmaking in general. Now, obviously, that's driven first by the mega brands, right? Who are very, very visible. The Rolexes, the Pateks, the Omegas, and so on, which are great brands. We have tons of respect. And sometimes people, talking to an independent brand like us will seek a bad word from us on those mega brands. But really, it's not just being nice. We do have loads of respect. And we own those watches. I mean, Max owns watches from those brands. I own watches from those brands. We love those brands. There's nothing wrong with them. Really. So that it's driven by those brands. And I think those brands, those mega brands, will become stronger and stronger and hotter. And people will, of course, enter the category through those brands. Now, the good news is also that, as you know, the awareness of independence, more niche brands like ourselves, is also growing. I guess for a number of reasons, because if you do your homework, you do at one point run into brands like us. If you're paying attention, if you're reading, or listening to great podcasts like this one, at one point you will discover these brands. So there's a lot of room, I think, for everyone. Where I would be worried, and this is not something very original, I'm saying you'll hear it from a lot of people, is if you're stuck in the middle somewhere, meaning you're not a huge mega brand, if you're not a very how can I say niche player with a strong personality, maybe then it will become difficult because you really are stuck between two very attractive extremes. I would personally be worried if I was there in the middle. But if I'm a mega brand or if I'm an interesting independent brand, I think for the time being, the future looks pretty good. Even though things might slow down, just compared to where we are right now, because right now is totally nuts. I think we all know that.
Did you notice a massive spike in sales or website traffic during the pandemic, and has that continued?
Yes. And there are all kinds of theories around this, but we clearly see it's very troubling, the beginning of this massive growth of demand with the beginning of COVID. It's almost perfect in terms of timing, which is very weird. Our first big launch, March 2020, was the Bulldog, HM10 Bulldog. So right at the beginning there of COVID. I mean, how did that happen? And that marks the beginning of massive demand, massive waiting lists. Top 2 months later, the LM101 we did with H. Moser. Super cool collaboration with them, good friends of ours, sold out within days, 60 pieces from us and I think 75 from them. Something happened at that point, and it's not stopped so far. We're worried it will slow down at one point, so we're ready for that because it's just unreasonable. As you may have heard from our colleagues in different brands, some of our references, are theoretically, and I do say theoretically because at this point it's, how can you be realistic? There are waiting lists of 10 years. That is, yeah. I mean, typically the LM101, which is our sort of entry legacy machine, lovely piece. If we look at the number of people we have on the waiting list and what we can produce, it's 10 years, which is, not going to happen. Obviously, who knows where we'll be in 10 years.
Now, you have a retail network, right? You
Yes.
have retailers around the world.
Oh, yes.
So how's that working with you? Like, is it possible to supply them? Are you getting information from them that their clients are still demanding MB&F, or is most
yes.
of the traffic coming directly? Okay.
No. I mean, it's still majority the retail network, and there's no plans to stop that. We rely on our retail partners, excellent retail partners around the world. We've reduced the number. That's true. At one point, several years ago, many years ago, like maybe 10 years ago now, or 7 or 8, there were 40 points of sale in the world. We're now down to something like 20 or even lower.
Okay.
So we've reduced the number of partners, concentrating obviously on the ones who have been doing an amazing job helping us, building the brand and so on. But we can't make enough for them either. Everyone is complaining. Everyone would like us to supply more. We are making more. So contrary to some of our colleagues, and that's fine. Everyone has their own business model. We have accepted the idea of some growth. So we are increasing production. If you look at last year, 2021, we made exactly 278 MB&F machines. I'm not counting the M.A.D.1s, obviously, which is a different story. Mm-hmm. So 278 MB&F pieces. This year we'll make something like 360. So that's almost 100 extra, which is huge for us. It's a major effort in terms of, ensuring production runs smoothly, quality, and so on and so on. And we're trying to make even more next year. We should be above 400. And that's not because we absolutely want to grow. In fact, Max, for many years, Max said he didn't want to grow. But under the pressure of our partners, of our clients, and so on, we've accepted the idea that we need to make a few more for them. It's just too frustrating to stay at the same level for all our partners and clients. So yeah, we're doing our best to increase.
It's a nice problem to have, I suppose, but it must be a bit of a headache for you, especially because you're the man on the front line most of the time, having to explain
Yes.
why there aren't enough pieces. But I mean, I don't think you can. You're not in danger of, shall we say, overproducing. I mean, you've seen this spike in interest. You've ramped up. I say ramped up production. I mean, you've
Yeah,
increased it
at our level,
moderately
yeah,
and
yeah.
responsibly. But you're not in any danger of blowing the top off, shall we say? So the question for most of our listeners, I suppose, is where in the world can they try on an MB&F if they're not able to get to one of the watch fairs in Geneva throughout the year? And also, when can they expect something else from the M.A.D. Gallery?
Okay.
And is it going to be green? Is it going to be green?
Well, first question. As I said, there are about 20 retailers around the world, so you can go to our website, check retail, and you'll find all our partners. So in Paris, there's now an MB&F lab. If your listeners are based in Europe, there's also an MB&F lab in Singapore. There's of course the amazing M.A.D. Gallery in Dubai, which is the biggest M.A.D. Gallery, bigger than Geneva. If you're in Geneva, you're more than welcome to visit the M.A.D. Gallery as well. And by the way, all these spaces are very open. They're not your typical watch boutique where you'll be screened at the entrance with security and this and that, and people will look you up and down to make sure you have the means to buy anything. These are very open environments. The briefing we give to our staff is you guys, you are here to explain mechanical art. You're here to, and some of the pieces are quite accessible, not unlike our watches. So we get all kinds of people in those spaces. So feel free. There's no pressure. There's no purchase pressure. In any case, most of the watches are not available. So no problem. So go ahead, walk in. And of course, we have a number of more classic multi-brand partners around the world as well who are doing an excellent job. I mean, so don't hesitate either. So that's one way. The fairs obviously are another way. As you said, the Geneva Watch Days, the Dubai Watch Weeks of this world, the Watch Time we had in New York a few months ago. Those are all good opportunities to meet the team, try on the watches. We're very open. We'll put the watch on your wrist. A lot of people want to see how they wear, and we like to do that kind of thing. So don't hesitate. On the M.A.D.1 front, there is more coming. So first, and this has been announced, so it shouldn't be major news. We are making more of those red versions because there weren't enough, as we said. So there is a new batch arriving early next year. Should be, I think, February or March 2023. We'll open up again with a lottery system. Hopefully, there will be more pieces available and maybe not as many registrations, I'm guessing. So hopefully your chances will be better. So watch out for that. And, if you go to our website or check our social media, there is a M.A.D. Editions specific social media page where we post all the news on the M.A.D.1. So that's a good channel. And the green one, about that green thing, that it was supposed to be green. The public yeah. Yeah.
Now you tell me. Oh,
yeah,
for goodness sake.
It's there. I mean, the first version we did for the public internally was green. So we have it. Unfortunately, at the time when we were preparing this, quite a few green watches came out from various other brands. And we were like, damn, I mean, what's going on here? We can't just be another, we love green, by the way, but we can't just do another green watch. So we, at the very last minute, we switched from green to red, which we love too, by the way. But the green one is there, so it will come out at a certain point. Don't worry.
Yes, that's awesome news. That's brilliant. I mean, it's such a wonderful idea because I personally always advocate when any brand wants to move into a different price sphere, which many brands have the desire to. I mean, even new brands that start out generally start out with an upper and lower target for their wares, and they appreciate they can't go beyond in either direction or it would alter the brand entirely.
Yep.
Starting a separate sub-brand, as it were, or a tangential brand or a partner or sister brand or something like this, it's just the perfect way to express yourselves in a different price bracket. And it's such a wonderful access point for people to just buy into the MB&F story. Now, it's not an MB&F, but I mean, it is kind of an MB&F. And that's kind of like the cool thing about it. Whenever I wear mine, I'm like, it's not an MB&F, but, Yeah,
it's brought to you by MB&F. I mean, it's the same team. So, we just created a separate brand to make clear that it's, not the same level of finishing and not the same price point and so on, of course, but we're not hiding the fact that it's from the same team. So you're right. It's being part of the community once again.
Sorry, I want to jump in. This begs the question because you already numbered it MAD1.
Yeah.
Is it in the planning to have MAD2?
Of course.
I assume you thought about it, yeah.
Of course. No, they're already on the drawing board. So MAD2 and 3 are already there. I mean, they're not ready, obviously. So, they will not launch next year. But of course.
So, Rob, I'll buy the green. I'll swap the red with you.
Well, no, my brother's got his eye on the red as well. So I promised him if a green one comes out, I'm going to seek out the green and give him the red. So I'm sorry, mate. You'll have to get yourself on the lottery.
Tell your brother to get to the UK, you need to pass Holland. So I'll snatch it off your wrist before you reach the
UK. Good move.
But I'm saving up money. Charris, I'm saving up money for my MAD1, 2, up until 10.
All right.
Hey, shall we pitch to them the idea of doing an orange for the Dutch market exclusive? How do you feel about that, Alan? That'd tickle your fancy, wouldn't it?
People say that you and I think alike, so here goes, Charris. You can answer Rob, not me.
Sounds like a good idea.
Oh, great. All right. That was easy. I love those on-air negotiations when we have someone up against the wall. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, good. So I'm actually devastated by this news that the MAD2 and MAD3 are on the drawing board and maybe about to leap off the drawing board because my bank account is quivering right now as we're talking about it.
By the way, the idea is to stay more or less in the same price point. So don't worry about that. We're not thinking of increasing prices tenfold or whatever for the next ones.
Oh, cool.
It's really that spot where we think there is an interest. So we'll stay there.
I really can't wait to see what you come up with because nobody saw the MAD1 coming. Nobody saw that kind of design, and what you were able to do with that base caliber was just, I mean, it's almost hilarious, basically. It's just, it's a wonderful curio. I was describing that watch to someone the other day as like an old time curiosity more than a watch in a way. Like I get it out and show people who aren't even into watches. I say, hey, come and have a look at this. Like I've got a little bit of treasure that I want to share with them. We go, look at that. That's the time on the side.
You're right. I mean, and it's so surprising to us. I mean, believe it or not, for some people who got the lottery access and got their first MAD1 Red, for some people it was their first watch, believe it or not. And, people who had never worn watches before. So a lot of them, of course, are watch fans who, know the MB&F story and so on and so on. But for quite a few people, it's their first watch. We had not expected that at all.
Yeah, I can barely believe it. I mean, what a incredible entry into the watch collecting game. I mean,
yes.
if that's your first piece, wow! I can't wait to see what you've got in 20 years' time. But that's I mean, it's a stunner. And what I'm really interested to see, and I would doubt the ability of many other brands, but not the ability of MB&F to follow that up with something else as creative and as exciting. So.
We're doing our best.
I can't wait, man.
and MAD2 and 3 are not just variations of MAD1, by the way. So when I say, the variations are obviously the colors. I mean, the red, the green, and so on. That's obviously something else. But the MAD2 and MAD3 are different pieces. They're not just a variation of MAD1.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that I think is a nice place to end it because our listeners are going to be running off and saving up their coins, I'm sure, for the next release of the MAD1 Red, which is, as you said, coming early next year. So keep an eye out on that and sign up to the lottery if you're interested in adding one to your collection.
Yes.
I'm sure my brother will be on there as well, and Alon, because he keeps looking hungrily at my red MAD1, and I'm a bit concerned about wearing it anywhere near him, to be honest. Thanks, Charris. It was absolutely wonderful to have you on the show, and as Alon has said to me off air many times, you could just listen to your talk for hours and hours on end. But what we're going to do instead is invite you back and say, hey, let's talk in 6 months' time. Let's see what's going on next year with the new releases, and we'll look back on the next batch of MAD1s and analyze that there and then, if you would be so kind as to grace us with your presence.
That sounds perfect. This was a lot of fun, so thanks so much. With great pleasure, obviously.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. If you would like to ask any questions about the episode today, then you can contact us on Instagram. I'm there at RobNuds. That's ROBNUDDS. Alon can be found at Alon Ben Joseph, ALONBENJOSEPH. If you have longer format questions or you just prefer to contact us by email, you can reach us at rob@therealtime.show or alon@therealtime.show. Don't forget to follow MB&F and stay up to date with all of their new releases. We'll be back next week with another interactive episode and another interview. Until then, stay safe and keep on ticking.